is possible that the opening cutscene, where we see ourselves, the player character, receiving some sort of blood transfusion, takes place. It's possible that this scene takes place in Iosefka's clinic, which is located in the city of Yharnam. Located in the city of Yharnam. Now, later when we return to this area, the door is locked, and through it we speak to none other than Iosefka, the practitioner of the clinic. Throughout the game, or endless night of the hunt, we can return to the locked door and speak with Iosefka, and at her request choose to send the various non-player characters we come across to her clinic as a safe haven. As a safe haven, we can send NPCs to her as a choice. But is it really Iosefka herself who makes this request? No. Various pieces of evidence suggest that the original Iosefka is replaced by an imposter very early on in the game. Let's speak about this nefarious switch of Iosefka to imposter Iosefka. Iosefka to imposter Iosefka. Iosefka to imposter Iosefka. So there are 3 major clues that give us evidence of this replacing happening. And this switch happens after the Father Gascoigne boss fight, which, if you are interested in the story of, I have a ASMR style video on that, and I will link it up there just in case you're interested. So, the 3 clues. Number 1, there is a subtle shift in the door animation, of which you speak to her through. Number 2, there is a change in Iosefka's voice. Number 3, there is a change in personality / contradictory dialogue. So let's go a little bit deeper into those points. So, first point, the door animation changes. The door that you speak to Iosefka through originally has a cooler lighting tint around it. And after the imposter seizes the clinic, there is a noticeably different lighting shift with almost a warmer tint, I want to say. I don't think or know if that is particularly significant lore-wise, but it definitely changes the atmosphere just enough. That it makes you question things and gives you this little speaking is also different. So the original Iosefka has a more factual tone and polite phrasing, and, still with that little hint of urgency, as it is the terrifying night of the hunt. And she also has a higher voice register, in my opinion at least, while the Imposters has a warmer yet more maniacal voice and is slightly less polite and proper in their phrasing. And this switch is confirmed in the ending credits, which read that Dr. Iosefka is voice acted by Jenny Funnel, whereas the imposter doctor is Lucy Briggs Owen. Now, I personally didn't notice the change in voice because I was so bad at the game at first that it took me such a large amount of time to get anywhere. So by the time I went back to Iosefka's clinic and talked to her through the door, I didn't remember the exact cadence of Iosefka's voice before the swap to now notice that there is a difference. However, I did get a fishy feeling from her and definitely spent a lot of time trying to get my game camera to peer through the small cracks in the glass in her clinic door, which didn't really reveal anything, but I tried really hard. So now let's speak on number 3, or point of evidence 3. The change in personality. And this change is quite apparent, particularly if you remember or pay attention to her dialogue. Particularly if you remember to pay attention to and compare her dialogue. So, right off the bat, when you first meet Iosefka, the real Iosefka, that is, she says, quote, "Are you out on the hunt? Then I'm very sorry, but I cannot open this door. The patients here in my clinic must not be exposed to infection. I know that you hunt for us, for our town, but I'm sorry. Please." End quote. So she is very clearly unwilling to let you, and likely anyone else for that matter, inside, in fear of infecting her patients, who she seems to care deeply for. And you can tell that she feels bad about this, and she does her best to help you by gifting you Iosefka's blood vial, of which the description reads, quote, "Blood vial acquired from Iosefka's clinic. This refined blood, highly invigorating, restores a larger amount of HP. The product of a slow and careful refinement process. This rare blood vial appears to be a clinic original. And Iosefka, the real Iosefka, will gift you up to 4 of these Iosefka's blood vials as long as you use them. She also, quote, prays for your safety, end quote. So, you've got those Iosefka thoughts and prayers. However, she continues to be adamant that she cannot open the door. Quite contrastingly, after you defeat Gascoigne and return to the clinic door, Iosefka says, "Oh, well, hello. Splendid. Let me ask you a small kindness. You're off soon to hunt, I presume." End quote. Wait a second. We already have met Iosefka, and presumably she already knows that we are off on the night of the hunt, and has already tried to assist us with our hunt. So, either she's just forgotten everything, or, something very suspicious is going on. And she continues to say, "If you find any survivors, tell them to seek Iosefka's clinic upon my Hippocratic oath if they are yet human. I will look after them, perhaps even cure them." End quote. And she goes on to say that she will offer us a reward for our cooperation. However, the Iosefka we know will give us vials freely without, need for a reward and give and take. So, and this new Iosefka concludes by saying, quote, "If you find anyone who is still human, send them straight to Iosefka's clinic. You can assure them there's no place safer. Please do me this service." End quote. So there's quite an attitude shift there. And it's kind of weird that she is now calling her clinic Iosefka's clinic, as opposed to earlier she would just say my clinic. That would be like if I started saying welcome to Persimmon's channel. It's kind of weird. Unless it's your thing, but it's not. So, yeah, but mainly it is weird how her door now seems wide open to new human patients, and there's no mention of her existing patients who she cared so deeply for before. And when returning, the imposter really goes on to say some suspicious things, and also has some sinister laughing moments. There's so much sinister laughter in Bloodborne. They really got good laughing actors. So, additionally, the difference in Iosefka's personality is also clearly demonstrated if you attack Iosefka through the door. Iosefka is more sympathetic or empathetic towards you, a hunter possibly losing themselves from the horrors of the hunt. And she says if you attack the door, "Please stop. It's beasts you hunt. see her, which I will get into how that happens shortly. She is wearing the white church attire, of which the description reads, "Attire of special church doctors. These doctors are superiors to the black preventative hunters and specialists in experimentally backed blood ministration and the scourge of the beast. They believe that medicine is not a means of treatment, but rather a method for research, and that some knowledge can only be obtained by exposing oneself to sickness." End quote. So, that description reveals quite a bit about the imposter. She is likely a special church doctor involved with potentially or likely shady research and experimentations. And when you think of her voice lines, such as when she's talking about how she wants you to send survivors, and rather creepily says, "They are in your hands and soon mine." End quote. That's really pointing to some shady goings on with her research. And all of this is confirmed when you sneak into the back of Iosefka's clinic, which is found through climbing a long ladder in the Forbidden Woods. Inside the clinic, we find celestial emissaries, and the number of these depends on how many survivors you sent to Iosefka's clinic, to the imposter. And if you attack these creatures, they will drop items related to that of their human form and who they were before the imposter got her hands on them. And even if you send nobody to Iosefka's clinic, there will be one celestial being there, one who drops Iosefka's blood vial. And that reveals the fate of the real Dr. Iosefka. And quite possibly, she had that blood vial on hand, all prepared to gift to you the next time you approached her firmly locked door. Okay, so why is the imposter doing this? We know that she is some sort of blood researcher, or blood minister from her outfit. And we are given some more clues when we interact with the imposter, when we sneak into the back entrance of the clinic. First off, we are given insight when we enter the clinic, which is a stat that represents, quote, "the depth of inhuman knowledge," end quote. So, immediately this suggests the acquisition of knowledge is involved, and possibly something inhuman. When we enter the clinic before the blood moon, also, I guess I should be saying that. This is all before the blood moon phase. The imposter threatens experimenting on you yourself if you do not, quote, "leave us alone," end quote. And here you are given a choice. You can either attack and stop the imposter here and now, or you can leave and kind of put it on the back burner for now, or this reveals that she sees her experiments in a sort of grandiose light of seeking and extending human, or perhaps inhuman, knowledge. And this idea of elevating human existence is echoed by other characters in the game Bloodborne, such as Provost Willem, the head of Bergenworth, a healing church academic / research facility, who, according to the Rune description, quote, looked to beings from higher planes for guidance and sought to line his brain with eyes in order to elevate his thoughts. So that's Provost Willem. Now, Mikolash, a rambling boss and student of the School of Minas, also shares these ideas when he says, grant us eyes, plant eyes in our brains to cleanse our beastly idiocy. End quote. So there really does seem to be this strong desire for higher knowledge, the granting of eyes from beyond human means, beyond human knowledge, from, higher planes and different dimensions, I suppose. Now, the imposter will also tell you, quote, this time I'll be trying old blood. And she says, cheers to the discovery of kinship, end quote. Clearly connecting her research to the kin of the cosmos and the great ones, and, the seeking of knowledge beyond humanity. Now, this thinking is very much in line with that of the choir, which is an elite affiliation of the Healing Church and holds some of the highest ranking members of the church, who also seek the evolution of humanity through knowledge and audience with great ones, including Ebriedes. And the choir also has connections to Bergenworth. If you choose to attack the imposter when sneaking into the clinic before the blood moon, she uses two fighting methods, both connected with that of the choir, further suggesting she could be, or she could have once been, a member of the choir. Now, one of these things that she uses is a call beyond, which is, quote, one of the secret rites of the choir. Long ago, the Healing Church used phantasms to reach a lofty plane of darkness, but failed to make contact with the outer some people suggest that the imposter stole the cord from Willem, partially due to the clinic's Forbidden Woods entrance that the imposter quite likely used themselves to seize control of the clinic. And therefore it's not too hard to believe that she could have traveled to Bergenworth and acquired the umbilical cord there. I personally think that it is more likely that this is her own umbilical cord from a surrogacy. I don't know if that's a word. From her own surrogate pregnancy with a great one, and that the description just links her fate to that of Willem. But I'm not sure. So something else interesting is that the imposter drops a Odin Wraith rune if you attack them when you first enter the clinic, which I think possibly further suggests that the imposter was chosen as a surrogate, because it mentions a mixing of the human and great ones, as it says, quote, in the description, that it says, human or not, the oozing blood is a medium of the highest grade, and the essence of the formless great one. Both Odin and Odin's inadvertent worshippers surreptitiously, I probably butchered that word, seek the precious blood. So I think that also hints to her pregnancy, and that being the source of the umbilical cord that you receive from her. So now we know a bit more on who the imposter Iosefka was and her fate. Now let's think a little bit about why she took over Iosefka's clinic. Other than what we already know as, having a space to conduct her experiments, it is possible that she indeed is a choir member, and that she is there on choir business, as the choir's home, the upper cathedral ward, is overrun by beasts. And she needed a new safe lab, so they sent her to Iosefka's clinic. We can assume that Iosefka's clinic is a very established clinic, saying that Iosefka's special blood vial is, quote, a clinic original. So it likely has a quite impressive setup to begin with, and Iosefka is possibly known for producing results. So what does that imply about the real Iosefka? Quick little side note here. The imposter and the real Iosefka look identical, and some people think that they could be twins or sisters. I don't know how I feel about that or how influential it is, but I thought I would mention that quickly and get it out of the way. Is the real Iosefka the kind-hearted, patient doctor we are led to believe she is? Iosefka is likely a church member herself, for she wears the white church set as well. And we know that those who wear that set, if, in line with the description, quote, believe that many which is a harmful, bubbling liquid. Surely that is great at hiding or dissolving bodies and destroying evidence. And there are wandering celestial emissaries in the Forbidden Woods, potentially wandering off from Iosefka's clinic. Additionally, near the back end of the clinic, there is a locked graveyard. And I don't think it's unusual for clinics or doctors to have patient casualties, and they have to have a way to dispose of those or bury those remains. I imagine particularly in this gruesome world. But why the lock? It kind of seems like Iosefka could have things to hide, and if she does, she has a awfully convenient setup to conceal evidence with a bubbling pit of possibly corrosive liquid in her backyard and a locked up graveyard. The second thing pointing to the original Iosefka not being as innocent as we think is when you sneak into the back of the clinic, you may notice that the number of celestial emissaries correlates with the number of survivors you sent imposters Iosefka. Imposter Iosefka. Except one. In a back room of the clinic, we see a past celestial emissary lying on a gurney. However, if you look closely, it still has a human hand and thigh, so they have only partially transformed, as this experiment does not match up with the refugees we sent to the imposter. Could this have been the work of the original Iosefka? Come to think of it, she was adamant on keeping her door locked for the safety of her patients, plural. However, other than that one partially transformed celestial emissary, there is no sign of any other original patients. Could the original Iosefka have barred our entry into her clinic in fear that it would expose her shady research? Particularly if she is aligned with the robes of the healing church that she wears, quote, knowledge can only be attained by exposing oneself to sickness. So, if she was aligned to that, she probably would have not minded too much of us entering the clinic. So, I think it's quite interesting, and some speculate that this partially transformed celestial emissary could be the blood minister that operates on us in the opening cutscene. We know that that scene takes place in Iosefka's clinic, and we never see any trace of this blood minister again until we later find this partially transformed being in the clinic. And nearby in the clinic is an empty wheelchair, just like the one the blood minister from the opening cutscene used. So they could have been one of the real Iosefka's patients, or potential victims. patients of the clinic. You know, there is that bubbling bit in the back. Maybe the imposter made use of that and begun experimenting on one of these patients in the back room. And that's why there is that partially transformed emissary there. So, we're not quite sure. Now, one final thing that I think is noteworthy about the original Iosefka is something that I find quite curious. The fact that one of her special blood vials is found in Margot's loft in the Nightmare of Mensis. I feel like I said Venus earlier, of Mensis. And based off how carefully crafted Bloodborne is, I like to think that this placement is significant, or, at least purposeful. It's very unclear why it is there, or, if it was the real Iosefka or the imposter who possibly led to this vial being there. But the imposter's possible connections to the choir, she may know Mikolaj. Maybe that's how it got there. Some people think that the real Iosefka may have had a connection to the school of Mensis and their connection to pale blood, as we find a note in her clinic at the start of the game saying to, quote, seek pale blood to transcend the hunt, end quote. And this note is quite possibly the real Iosefka's note. Now, I won't say more on that because it's a tad convoluted, but I still thought it was quite interesting. And based off all of that, I'm really not sure if Dr. Iosefka really is the kind-hearted do-gooder she seems to be. If you want, let me know what you think down below in the comments if you've stayed awake this long. And yeah, that is the curious lore behind Iosefka, the imposter, and Iosefka's clinic. I hope as always you found this a simultaneously interesting